let me show you this little gem. It's a patchwork sewing machine pincushion that ties straight onto your sewing machine, keeping your pins where you need them. It's quick, beginner friendly and perfect for using up precious scraps. Let's make one. First, cut and arrange 28 1.5 and 1 2.5 inch square like this. Then we're going to start sewing them together, right sides together, a pair at a time. I'm using a 2mm stitch length here and a 1/4 inch seam. If you find it easier just to follow the edge of your foot, that's fine too. Consistency is the name of the game here. We call this chain piecing, where we make them into a long string like this. As you can see, I'm picking them up, snipping them off the back of the machine and then laying them back down in position so I can keep track of my design. Now here's my thread saver. It's just a scrap of fabric that I'm using to finish and begin stitching lines. It's kind of like a placeholder. Now I'm sewing together the 2 pairs to make a single strip of 4. I'm going to do that 4 times so that I have 4 rows of 4 squares. There goes my thread saver again. Now I've pressed them. And as you can see, I've pressed them with the seams going in opposite directions each time. I'm going to pick up 2, right sides together, and I'm going to nest those seams and pop a pin into the intersections. Now I don't care what the ends of the seams are like. I don't even care what's going on in between the intersections really, though they should fit if we've been consistent. What I want is to make sure that those intersections are pinned as neatly as possible. Once I've pinned, I'm going to sew. Using a thread saver and chain piecing is a real game changer. It makes sewing so much easier and more straightforward. There you go, I'm pinning together the 2 pieces to make one final 4x4 square. Thread saver again, and there you have it. Now for the back, I've put together 2 2s and 2 4s. Now the 2 2s are going to get sewn on either side of that 2.5 inch square, just like this. Okay. Now I'm going to take my strings. Now I'm using some nice ribbon here. Now notice that the design, the pattern, the attractive side of the strings are facing upwards. It's really important because we want to be able to see those strings when we tie it on the machine. So line up your intersections again. I'm pinning on the second one, right side up. Pin that second side in place. So, this is such a quick and easy project. You'll notice there that I went forwards and back over the ends of my strings. That's just a nice little sort of touch just in case, because you know there's going to be a lot of pressure on that string as it's tied on and off your machine. There, now. Here I'm folding up those strings. I call this the mischief managed part of the project. So I'm pinning the strings well and truly out of the way in the centre so they're nowhere near the edges. And then I'm going to line up my 4x4 square that I made earlier and pin each of the intersections. Now this is quite satisfying because if you've been consistent and you've taken your time, they should all line up, which is quite a nice feeling. You're going to leave an opening, but you're going to make sure that that opening is at the bottom of your pincushion. So if, like me, you've used a directional string, you're going to want to make sure that you get the strings in one place, facing upwards, and that your opening is at the bottom. Now I'm going to sew all the way around, leaving a small opening. Forwards and back at the beginning. Sew around using a 1/4 inch seam or the edge of your foot, and pivot at the corners. If you don't know what pivoting is, it's basically putting your needle in the down position, lifting your presser foot and turning your fabric on the needle, or pivoting. There, finished. Snip the corners to reduce the bulk. Make sure you don't cut your sewing whatever you do. Take your time, do that slowly. And now turn through. Top tip on turning through, go for the very furthest away point first. Here I'm just pulling out the pin that's holding the ribbons. See that? I got the bottom corner up first. If you do that, it will really help to get the whole thing through. That's a good rule for turning through. And then I'm using a chopstick, or a Pincushion as we call it, to just push out those corners and make them nice and neat. Time for stuffing. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay, so the thing with the stuffing is we really do want a nice solid pincushion. So pop that stuffing right down into the furthest corners. Make sure there's a good pinch in each of the 4 corners before you start stuffing the main body of the pincushion. You can use crushed walnut shells for this. That's the traditional proper filling for a pincushion. To be honest, never done it myself, but I believe you can. Now, pin together the opening so that it's nice and neat, and then we're going to use a ladder stitch. Now, ladder stitch is basically a stitch where you take a run along the fabric fold or the reed on one side, and then you jump across to the opposite side and go along that fold or reed. And each of the stitches looks like a little run of a ladder, which you can see here. Now, those little runs are quite visible, but when you've done a few, 2 or 3 or whatever, don't do too many before you pull it up. You can actually pull your thread up. Right, I'm just speeding this up because you don't want to watch me hand sewing all day. Stitch from one side, stitch from the other, jump backwards and forwards and pull up the thread. And then when you get to the end, you want 3 little stitches, one after another, and then bury your thread. And here is a gallery of pincushions made by some of my students. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe.